My parents sold my car to buy my sister a luxury gift, while I paid for everything, so I vanished and left them in complete shock. I'm a 27-year-old guy, and I've always been the responsible one in my family. From the moment I turned 18, it felt like I was drafted into a permanent roll bill payer. Problem solver, chauffeur, handyman. I work a full-time job that barely leaves me energy for myself. Yet I'm the first one up every morning, making sure the house is in order, the bills are paid, the car doesn't break down, and somehow I still manage to pick up groceries, fix leaky faucets, and run errands my parents conveniently forget. I live frugally because every extra dollar feels like a contribution toward keeping the family afloat, while Emma, my younger sister, seems to float through life untouched by responsibility. Can you transfer the tuition for Emma's driving lessons? Mom asks one evening, sipping her tea, completely unbothered by the mountain of other bills she knows I've already covered. I'll handle it, I say, biting back the frustration. Stuffing my feelings behind a polite smile, they never seem to notice the late nights I pull, the weekends I sacrifice, or the overtime I take just to keep the house running smoothly. But every time Emma gets a good grade, lands a new internship, or even buys a flashy little thing for herself, my parents can't stop gushing. That's our Emma, they say, beaming as if she carried the entire world on her shoulders. Meanwhile, my own efforts dissolve into thin air, acknowledged at best with a passing thanks, honey, or worse, ignored entirely. I catch glimpses of her new lifestyle, a pair of expensive sneakers here, a designer bag there, and I know my parents are enabling it all, applauding every indulgence without a second thought about where the money comes from. Part of me wants to be angry, to shout, to confront, but I hold it back. I've always believed that loyalty and hard work are worth something, that someday my sacrifices will be recognized, that my quiet dedication is not in vain. But deep down, a tiny knot of doubt has started to form in my chest, whispering that maybe, just maybe, I've been invisible all along, and that thought, it's starting to feel heavier every day. After everyone's asleep, I sit alone at the kitchen table, staring at bills spread across the counter, and I can almost hear the sound of my own frustration echoing in the quiet. The house smells faintly of coffee and lemon cleaner, a scent I've grown numb to after years of scrubbing and tidying. I think about the new laptop. Emma just got a reward for her grades. My parents said, and I realize I'm the one who quietly kept the utilities running so she could have that moment of pride. Did you see Emma's post? She's going to New York with her friends next month. Mom chirps one morning, phone in hand, her excitement filling the kitchen. That's great, I mumble, pushing scrambled eggs around my plate. I can feel my teeth grit, but I swallow the bitterness. It's always been easier to let them have their moments than to cause a scene. Even at work, I'm exhausted but committed, juggling spreadsheets and customer calls while my mind races with household responsibilities I can't ignore. I try to picture a future where maybe they'll acknowledge me, where my sacrifices aren't just invisible background noise. I tell myself I'm doing it for the family I love, for the stability they rely on, even if they can't see the effort it takes. But there's a quiet ache underneath it all, a gnawing sense that my hard work, my reliability, the countless times I've put my life on hold, it's just expected, like air or water. Meanwhile, Emma smiles for Instagram, her designer bag slung over her shoulder, her parents clapping as if she's single-handedly carrying the family on her back. I take a deep breath, listening to the hum of the refrigerator, the soft tick of the wall clock, and for a moment, I allow myself to imagine a life where I matter as much as she does. I hold on to that thought like a lifeline, but even as I do, a flicker of unease lingers, this quiet, simmering tension that something has to change, because I can't keep disappearing into the background forever. And deep down, I know the tipping point is coming. It happened one Saturday afternoon. I had just finished mowing the lawn and fixing a stubborn leak under the kitchen sink when I walked past the driveway and froze. My car, the one I'd painstakingly paid off over the past 3 years, was gone. I called out, my voice tighter than I realized. "Oh, hey, sweetie." "Your car," she answered cheerfully from the porch, brushing her hands on her apron. "We sold it." I laughed nervously, thinking maybe I misheard. "Sold it? What do you mean, sold it?" Mom hesitated, and I caught a flicker of guilt or maybe annoyance in her eyes. "We needed to get Emma something special. That gift she's been wanting. It's expensive." We thought this was the easiest way. I felt like the air had been sucked out of me. My heart pounded, and for a second, the grass I'd just cut seemed to blur around the edges. "You sold my car?" Without even asking me. I tried to keep my voice steady, but it cracked somewhere between disbelief and rage. Dad appeared behind her, arms crossed, wearing that same dismissive expression I'd grown so familiar with. "You've got a job, right? You don't need it, Emma. Well, she's our little princess, and she deserves this." The words hit harder than I expected. My sacrifices, the overtime shifts, the extra side jobs. The nights I spent fixing the house while Emma slept comfortably in her room didn't even register. Not one thank you for the countless things I'd done to keep the family afloat. Nothing, just a shrug and a justification for giving her. The world, while taking mine away, I stood there, numb, staring at the empty driveway. The smell of fresh-cut grass mixed with the metallic temps of my anger. Emma skipped out the front door, oblivious, her phone glued to her hand, her excitement about her gift lighting up her face. And in that moment, I realized quietly, painfully, that my family didn't just overlook me. They took me for granted. I felt the first real flicker of something I hadn't allowed myself to feel in years, the desire to disappear. I tried to talk to them. I really tried that evening. I sat them down in the living room, the smell of burnt toast lingering from my rushed dinner, my hands clenching the armrest of the couch as if it could hold me together. "Mom, Dad, we need to talk about the car," I started, my voice calm but firm. Mom sipped her tea like she didn't even hear me. "Oh, sweetie, it's done now. No point dwelling on it," she said, smiling in that patronizing way that always made my stomach twist. "No, it's not done. You sold my car without asking. And for what? So Emma could get another expensive toy while I've been paying for everything around here," I demanded, trying to keep my frustration from boiling over. Dad leaned back in his chair, exhaling slowly. "You're overreacting. Emma's happy, isn't she? That's what matters. You've got a stable job, you don't need that car." I froze. Stable job? I had poured myself dry for this family, picking up extra shifts, fixing the house, covering bills they couldn't be bothered to remember. And here they were, dismissing it like I was nothing. "You don't get it," I muttered, the anger climbing, the blood pounding in my ears. Mom shook her head. "I think you're just being dramatic. You always take things too seriously. Emma's our little girl. Don't be jealous." Jealous. I wanted to scream. "I'm not jealous, I'm invisible." The words burned inside me, twisting into a knot of rage and hurt that I couldn't shake. My chest felt tight, my hands clammy. The house felt smaller somehow, suffocating, like the walls were closing in to remind me I didn't belong in their world of indulgence and favoritism. I left the room without another word, walking past Emma's laughter echoing from her bedroom, the sound like salt in a wound. Their dismissive smiles chased me down the hallway, and for the first time in years, I questioned whether loyalty and hard work meant anything at all, and in that silence, the thought crept in, quiet but persistent. Maybe it's time I stop expecting them to ever see me. Maybe it's time to do something. Drastic. Days passed, and nothing changed. I went through the motions work, bills, repairs, but the weight of their dismissal settled like a stone in my chest. Every time I saw Emma flaunting her new gift, snapping photos for social media, I felt my blood run cold. My parents praised her as if she'd climbed a mountain on her own, while I was expected to silently carry the foundation of this household. One evening, I found myself in the garage, staring at the empty space where my car had been. The fading scent of motor oil and old leather seemed to mock me. I'd parked my life there, literally and figuratively, and it was gone to feed someone else's happiness, while mine was treated like a background detail. Mom's voice floated from the doorway. "I'm fine," I said, though the words tasted bitter. I wasn't fine. I was furious, hurt, and exhausted, but she didn't see it. She probably never would. Emma walked past, swinging her designer bag. "Hey, thanks for letting me have this, I guess," she said lightly, as if I had any say in the matter. My stomach twisted. "I didn't let you have ETI. Worked my ass off so this house could support your little whims, but saying it wouldn't matter, they'd dismiss it. They always did." I started to notice how deeply this pattern ran. Every time I tried to assert myself, every time I hoped for recognition, I was met with indifference or guilt. My anger simmered under the surface, unspoken, but growing, like a storm I couldn't control. At night, I lay awake in my small, cluttered bedroom, listening to the distant laughter of Emma and the soft hum of the refrigerator, and wondered how long I could keep carrying everything alone. My life felt like a shadow of itself, and for the first time, the thought of leaving, of vanishing completely, no longer seemed impossible. I didn't know how or when, but a tiny, dangerous spark had ignited inside me, and deep down, I knew I couldn't keep being invisible forever. Something had to give, and maybe it would be me walking away. Something inside me broke after that. Not in a dramatic, movie-type way, more like a slow, painful realization that no matter what I did, it would never be enough. I started keeping to myself. I'd wake up, go to work, come home, and move through the house like a ghost. Every sound annoyed me: the clinking of dishes, Emma's laughter, my parents' TV blaring from the living room. I didn't belong there anymore. Not really. One night, I overheard them talking in the kitchen. "Your brother's been acting distant," Mom said. Dad sighed. "He'll get over it. He always does." Then, Emma's voice, light, careless. "Well, he's probably just jealous. I mean, I'd be too if Mom and Dad sold my car to buy me something better." They all laughed, and something inside me snapped. That was the moment I realized they didn't just take me for granted, they enjoyed it. My hard work was their comfort. My silence was their permission. So I decided to change the rules. I started saving quietly. Every extra penny went into a hidden account. I stopped paying unnecessary bills, claiming delays at work. I made myself useful just enough to stay unnoticed. At night, I researched apartments in nearby towns, jobs with relocation packages, anything that would let me disappear without leaving a trace. Meanwhile, I played the part polite, dependable, predictable. I smiled when Mom asked for help, nodded when Dad needed something fixed, and even congratulated Emma when she bragged about her luxury gift online. But underneath that calm exterior, I was already gone, because for the first time in my life, I wasn't thinking about how to keep the family together. I was planning how to leave them behind permanently, and if I did it right, they wouldn't even see it coming. The midpoint came like a punch to the gut. I'd always assumed my parents sold my car for Emma's gift simply because they favored her, because they thought I didn't need it. But I was wrong. One evening, while pretending to pay bills at the kitchen table, I overheard Mom on the phone. Her voice was hushed, coated with guilt she didn't want me to hear. "Yes, I sold his car for Emma's gift," she whispered. "And the rest, well, it wasn't really for her. It was for Mr. Thompson. He insisted we get her the latest model. Said it would make him look good at the neighborhood fundraiser." I froze. Mr. Thompson? Our neighbor? The one who always smiled and complimented Mom's cooking. They weren't just spoiling Emma, they were using her. And by selling my car, they'd handed my hard-earned freedom to someone else entirely. My hands shook. My heart pounded in a rhythm that made my chest ache. The betrayal I thought I'd known. It was deeper, more deliberate, more manipulative than I'd ever imagined. My sacrifices, my work, my loyalty, it had all been collateral damage for their social image. Emma skipped into the kitchen, phone in hand, oblivious to the chaos inside me. "Hey, can you believe Mom got this for me? Isn't it amazing?" she said, grinning, waving the receipt. I wanted to scream, to throw something, to let the walls echo my anger. But I didn't. Instead, I smiled, a calm, quiet smile that masked the storm inside me. Because now I knew I had proof. They weren't just dismissive, they were manipulative. They'd turned my life into their convenience. And Emma had been the unwitting centerpiece of their schemes. And for the first time, the idea of vanishing completely didn't just feel like rebellion. It felt like justice. I leaned back in my chair, listening to their voices, watching their laughter. And I knew something had to change. But before I could act, I needed a plan, careful, quiet, irreversible. And that's when the first seeds of my disappearance were planted. After overhearing that call, I didn't confront them. Not this time. Instead, something inside me went still, like the quiet before a storm. I realized arguing was useless. They didn't care about right or wrong. They cared about appearances. So, I decided to give them exactly what they wanted. Silence. The kind of silence that would haunt them. Every night after work. I sat in my room with the blinds half closed, laptop screen glowing faintly in the dark. I researched relocation programs, cheap apartments in other cities, and transfer opportunities at work. I called a friend from college who lived 2 states away, someone I hadn't spoken to in years. "You still have that spare room?" I asked. When he said yes, I felt the first breath of freedom in what felt like forever. From then on, I played my role perfectly. At breakfast, I smiled when Mom asked if I could run errands. "Of course," I'd say, just like always. When Dad complained about the electric bill, I nodded, pretending I'd take care of it, though I'd already stopped paying weeks ago. Even Emma noticed the change. "You've been quiet lately," she said one night, her tone almost curious. "I guess I'm just tired," I replied, and she shrugged. Already scrolling through her phone, I started moving my things in small doses. A few shirts, personal documents, tools from the garage, nothing that would raise suspicion. I deleted my social media, shut down auto payments, rerouted my paychecks. Each step made me feel lighter, but also colder. While my parents watched TV in the living room, I walked past them unseen, not because they ignored me this time, but because I was already a ghost, and as I climbed into bed that night, staring at the ceiling fan spinning slowly above me, I knew the next time they called my name, I wouldn't answer because I wouldn't be there. The morning I left, the house was still half asleep. The sky outside was painted in pale gray, the kind that makes everything look suspended in time. I remember standing in my doorway, staring at the room that had held so much of my exhaustion. The peeling posters, the worn carpet, the hum of the old ceiling fan, all of it suddenly felt foreign. I slipped out quietly. No note, no goodbye. Just the faint creak of the front door and the soft click of it closing behind me. My backpack felt heavier than it should have. Maybe because it carried the last pieces of my life. There were a few clothes, my laptop, and a small folder of documents that proved I existed. The bus station was nearly empty. The air smelled like diesel and rain. I bought a one-way ticket to a city far enough that I wouldn't be tempted to turn back. As the bus rolled away, I looked out the window at the familiar streets, the ones I'd driven through hundreds of times in my now-sold car. It struck me that my parents probably hadn't even noticed it was morning yet by the time they did. I'd already crossed county lines. My phone buzzed, missed calls, messages from Mom. "Where are you? Did you take the rent money?" "This isn't funny." I turned the phone off. The silence that followed was almost too much, thick and absolute. For the first time in my life, no one needed anything from me. The weight of expectation, of guilt, of being the reliable one, it was gone. But so was everything familiar. The world outside the window blurred into green and gray. And though freedom felt exhilarating, it also hurt like stepping into cold air after living too long in a warm, suffocating room. I didn't know what waited for me ahead. All I knew was that I wasn't going back. Not this time. The first few days alone were surreal. Freedom felt like standing at the edge of a cliff. Thrilling, yes, but terrifying. The apartment I rented was small, dimly lit, and smelled faintly of bleach from the previous tenant. I unpacked my backpack, arranging the few belongings I'd brought with care, and sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the pale walls. Silence stretched in all directions. At first, it was bliss. No demands, no interruptions, no constant reminder that I existed only to keep everyone else comfortable. But soon, the absence of their chaos turned suffocating in its own way. I realized just how much of my life had been defined by these people, even by their neglect. Late one night, I scrolled through my old photos, Emma's birthday parties, family vacations, my own accomplishments quietly documented in the background. None of it had felt like my life. It had always been their show, and I'd just held the props. A hollow ache settled in my chest. I felt invisible again, but now without the excuse of being responsible or helpful. I called a friend just to hear a human voice. We talked briefly, but it wasn't the same. I missed the routine, the arguments, the tiny fragments of connection, even if it came with betrayal. For the first time, I wondered if I'd gone too far. And then, a notification popped up on my phone, a group chat with my family. Messages from Mom and Dad, desperate and confused, filled the screen. "Please just answer us. We can fix this. Emma misses you." I felt a pang of guilt, a flash of longing, but it was fleeting. I knew I couldn't go back. Not yet. Not while the imbalance still existed. That night, Lying on the hard mattress, I realized something terrifying. Leaving hadn't solved anything. I was alone, untethered, and completely responsible for myself. And yet, for the first time, that responsibility wasn't being forced on me by anyone else. I was free. But freedom had a cost, and it hurt more than I expected. Weeks passed before I even checked my messages again. Curiosity got the better of me one night when the loneliness became louder than the silence. I logged into an old social media account, one they didn't know I still had, and what I saw stopped me cold. Emma's posts were gone. My parents' cheerful family updates had disappeared. In their place were vague, desperate messages. "Please come home. We're worried about you. If anyone has seen our son, please contact us." For the first time, I realized how much they'd depended on me. Not out of love, but necessity. Without me, the house wasn't running, bills weren't paid, and the little world they'd built on my back was starting to collapse. A part of me felt guilty. Another part, didn't I got an email from my mother's account a few days later. The subject line read, "We're sorry." The body of the email was short, almost robotic. "We didn't realize how much we relied on you. Things have been hard. Please call." But even then, I could tell it wasn't about missing me. It was about missing what I did for them. One evening, I sat by the window of my new apartment, watching the city lights flicker like restless stars. I thought about calling them just once, maybe to hear their voices, but I didn't because I finally understood. Love that only exists when you're useful isn't love. It's dependence dressed as affection. For the first time in my life, I had distance, and with distance came clarity. They hadn't changed. They'd just run out of ways to use me. Still, there was one thing left I needed to do before I could truly move on. Something that would force them to face what they'd done, not through silence, but through truth. And that moment was coming sooner than they thought. It was months later when I finally decided to show up, not because I missed them, but because I needed them to see me fully. I walked into the house quietly, watching from the doorway as Emma laughed with my parents. They looked up, and for a moment, everything froze. "Where have you been?" Mom asked, her voice tight, almost frantic. I didn't answer right away. I let the silence stretch, heavy and deliberate. "I was here all along," I said finally, my tone calm but firm. "Just not in the way you wanted me to be." Dad's face paled. We didn't mean." "I know," I interrupted, stepping fully into the living room. "You didn't mean to hurt me. You just never noticed me. You praised Emma for everything, her grades, her clothes, her little victories, while my work, my time, my sacrifices went invisible. You sold my car, spent my money, and never once thought to ask me." Emma's eyes widened, a flicker of guilt crossing her face, but she stayed silent. "I left because I needed to be seen," I continued, voice steady, filled with a strange clarity I'd never had before. "And while I was gone, you realized how much you relied on me, not because you loved me, but because you needed me. That's not love, that's convenience." Mom tried to interrupt, but I shook my head. "No, listen, I'm done being invisible. I won't let my life be taken for granted again." I paused, letting the words sink in, then turned toward the door. "I'm not leaving again because I have to. I'm leaving because I choose to, and now, finally, you understand what that feels like." I walked out, not looking back. The house was silent, the air heavy with the weight of realization. For the first time, I felt lighter, free from their expectations, free from their manipulations. I'd vanished, yes, but I returned only to show them the truth. And as I stepped into the cool evening air, I smiled. For the first time in years, I wasn't just the responsible one. I was me.